The second of two college football playoff semifinals are sending us to Jerry's World in Arlington, Texas, and it might be a de facto home game for the Texas Longhorns, but I told you in my bracket update, if this Ohio State team plays like that for 120 more minutes of football, they will be crowned national champions. They're looking to do so for the first time since 2014 when they won the first iteration of the 4-team playoff. Now, in the first iteration of the 12-team playoff, can the Buckeyes get back to a national championship game, or is Texas going to spoil what's been a magical run for the Scarlet and Gray? What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today. Welcome to my channel. Thank you so much for watching this video, and welcome to your second college football playoff semifinal prediction video. Notre Dame and Penn State is already up, but we got to preview this one between the Buckeyes and the Longhorns, and we'll tell you everything you need to know about this game here in just a little bit. But I'll say it again, thank you so much for watching this video. It helps support the channel in many more ways than you can even imagine, and all the support we got in 2024, I want to see that grow in 2025. The biggest way to help support the channel is hitting the subscribe button and ringing the bell, but any other way you interact with the channel will help support what I do here on YouTube, whether that's liking, commenting, sharing, or again, if the only thing you do is sit down, relax, and watch this video, hey, you're helping to support the channel in any way that you interact with it. So thank you so much for that. But you can also go support me outside of YouTube by following me on Twitter, or X, whatever you prefer to call it, and Instagram. And if you want to follow me in a more professional setting, you can go give me a follow on LinkedIn. For Twitter and Instagram, it's at TailgateNate29. And my New Year's resolution, going to start posting a lot more about what I do in the sports media realm, such as games I call, articles I write, things I cover, so many more things. If you're interested in what I do outside of YouTube, please go give me a follow on anything that I just mentioned right there. But with all that said and done and out of the way, thank you so much for your support. Let's talk about this one, the Buckeyes and the Texas Longhorns. I told you a little bit ago, if that Ohio State team plays as good as they have for the past 120 minutes of football, for another 120 minutes of football, they're going to walk out of this thing as the national champions. But Texas has some things to where they can slow this Ohio State team down, to where they can limit what the Scarlet and Gray like to do. But there is a school of thought out there in Ohio State is a buzzsaw right now. And if the buzzsaw is going to continue to cut through things, Ohio State is going to be near impossible to stop. Texas poses some challenges, and we're going to tell you what they are here in just a little bit. How do we do preview predictions on the channel? Well, we'll go through some keys to the game when each team possesses the football. So we're first going to look at this Ohio State offense against the Texas defense, and then we'll flip it. We'll look at the Texas defense against the Silver Bullet, or we'll look at the Texas offense, my apologies, against the Silver Bullet defense. At the end of the video, I'll give you some final keys to the game, tell you how I think this game is going to play out, as well as give you my final prediction for who I think is going to come away a winner from AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas. Couple things that these two teams will beat week 1 of the regular season next year, so there already is going to be a little bit of that sort of conversation and just that sort of feel going on within this matchup. I believe that game in Columbus next year, and yes, I did get a haircut in between recordings, why I look a little different. But anyways, let's dive on in talking about this game. And I talked about the buzzsaw a little bit ago. This Buckeye defense has been great, and we'll talk about it here in a minute. But this Buckeye offense, man, has just been amazing and has been unstoppable, especially number 4 in Scarlet. Jeremiah Smith has been an otherworldly force, and I think he is proving why he is the best wide receiver in college football, and I really don't think it's close. From what he's shown over the past 2 games, I think he's the best wide receiver in the nation. I don't think it's close, and he's a true freshman. The Buckeyes are going to have him for at least 2 more seasons. You know what he did in the Tennessee game. He did you one better in the Oregon game. 7 catches, 187 yards, 2 touchdowns, made plays in open space, was going up over 2 or 3 defensive backs and making catches, and even made one wide open, got one-on-one with a safety, made him go left, he went right, and there was no one within 15 yards of number 4. Will Howard has been throwing dimes, and the Buckeyes are running the football. Travion Henderson had 2 touchdowns in that Oregon game, including busting out a 66-yard run. Quinshon Judkins didn't necessarily have his best day against Oregon, but he had 2 touchdowns in the game against Tennessee. And you got to watch out for both of those guys because both of them can spring off big runs. Both of them can get the big play energy going. But the big thing for me for this Ohio State offense is, yes, Will Howard playing A-grade football, but this offensive line. The offensive line that has been questioned and the sort of the makeshift offensive line. And I use quotes because, a lot of people see, they've had injuries on the offensive line. They've strung guys together, and they've worked really, really well. Will Howard has not gotten sacked in the college football playoff yet. That actually might be a lie. Tennessee might have gotten him once, but Oregon didn't get him at all. There were no sacks in that game for the Duck defense, and this Buckeye offensive front has been amazing. It's going to go up against the Texas defense, though, that is built a little bit different. Oregon is a very good defense, but the Texas defense is built different. It's got probably the best group of defensive backs in the entire country, and I know we're going to be talking about this Ohio State defense later, but Texas has got guys like Taff and Makuba that have just been sensational and have been otherworldly. They got Simmons at linebacker. He is a freshman as well, and he's been playing some great ball. And that Texas defensive front, man, 45 sacks on the year. And kind of like what we talked about with Notre Dame, Texas loves to force turnovers, and they do it within their system. It's not necessarily part of the game plan to turn you over. It just happens with the way that Texas schemes their defense and with the way that they play football. They are going to try to force Will Howard to make some mistakes. They might even punch on the football and get Travion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins to put that football on the ground. But the biggest thing that they do is force quarterbacks to make mistakes. And that's what Will Howard has got to watch out for. There have been times this year where Will Howard has played just mistakeful football. He did that against Michigan. Everyone remembers the thing at the end of the Oregon game back in the regular season, despite how well he played that game. But this Texas defense is built just a little bit different, and it's going to pose a unique challenge for this Buckeye offense. So what are some keys? Well, Howard is going to look to continue to create. I will tell you right now, if Will Howard is going to go out there and throw for 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks, go 24 of 30 again, and play grade A football, I don't think Texas has a shot because that means Will Howard has solved this Longhorn secondary. And in order for Texas to have a shot here, I think that the secondary is going to have to figure out Will Howard in this pass game. You got to lock down Jeremiah Smith. He is the biggest threat out there, but when you think you have him covered, that's going to open up Emeka Egbuka, Carnell Tate, Brandon Inniss, G. Scott, the tight end, who's made some really big plays in both of the playoff games that Ohio State has played so far. This is just a really tough game, or Ohio State offense to game plan for, because then when you think you have the pass game locked down, Henderson and Judkins can both rip off runs, and they can get through this Texas defensive front. They have played good defensive fronts before. They just ran all over Oregon. They got a really good defensive front 7, Penn State. Ohio State was able to average over 4 yards per carry against one of the best run defenses in the entire country, which Texas also is. But they struggled to defend one guy in Cam Skattebo, who might overall be a better tailback than Henderson or Judkins in some facets. But when you have 2 heads instead of 1, it makes the job a whole lot harder for a defense. The Texas front has got to be able to perform in every single way. They pose some different challenges because of the dudes that they have and the scheme that they run. And this Ohio State makeshift offensive front has been playing some really good ball. I'd find it hard to believe that Will Howard doesn't get on the ground at least once in this game. However, this offensive line for Ohio State has been playing really well. It's going to get challenged because of this Texas front, but it's got to show up with the pass rush. You got to make Will Howard feel uncomfortable. The secondary is going to do some things to get Will Howard out of his rhythm with their coverages and how they line up in disguising this, that, and the other. But the Texas defensive front, you got to be able to stop the run, which they couldn't do against Arizona State. And they really did against Clemson, but Clemson wasn't at full strength. You didn't have Phil Maffa. You couldn't defend Cam Skattebo. And we'll talk about the other side of the line of scrimmage here as well. But can the Longhorns stop Jeremiah Smith? Can they force Will Howard to make mistakes and get him to get out of this A-grade ball he has been playing? Will Howard has got some motivation here. He was a quarterback in the Big 12. The one Big 12 team he's never beat is the Texas Longhorns. And Jeremiah Smith has got some beef because the freshman linebacker at Texas, really, really good player, and Colin Simmons won the Freshman of the Year award, not Jeremiah Smith. So all of that is going to be fueling Ohio State here, but you can give Texas a lot of fuel as well. No one is expecting Texas to win this game, and there are a whole lot of other things going against the Longhorns. If they can get +2 or more in the turnover battle, this game is going to be close, and it gives Texas a shot to pull this game out. I think you have to get Will Howard off balance, you have to get him off rhythm, and you have to find a way to win at least 1 or 2 50-50 balls when the ball gets put in the air in the direction of number 4. When you talk about Texas from an offensive standpoint, this is where the conversation gets really tricky because Texas as an entire team this year has been very, very inconsistent. They have all the talent in the world. Quinn Ewers, I think, is a really darn good quarterback. And in the running back room, Quintravion Wisner, Jaden Blue are 2 really, really good players. In the Texas wide receiver room, Matthew Golden is sort of turning into that Jeremiah Smith type player, the guy that you can rely on time after time after time for Texas. You have the tight end in Gunnar Helm. Ryan Wingo is there. We've seen Silas Bolden step up and make plays before. Ohio State probably has more horses, but Texas in some ways has dudes that Ohio State should be scared of as well. And we'll talk about the Buckeye defense in just a little bit. But Quinn Ewers has been inconsistent. This Texas offense as a whole has been inconsistent, and it starts up front. Their offensive line, much like Ohio State's, is beaten and battered too, only it seems to be affecting Texas a lot more than it affects Ohio State. Now, obviously, not having your Remington award-winning center and Seth McLaughlin is going to hurt. Not having one of the best left tackles the Big Ten has seen this year and Josh Simmons is going to hurt. But the Buckeyes have had other guys step up and play well. Texas hasn't. They allowed Arizona State, a team that did not have a great pass rush all season long, to get 3 sacks and 9 tackles for loss. This is an offensive front that also got bullied by Clemson. It's an offensive front that has been inconsistent. It's an offensive front that at times has not allowed Texas to run the football, which if Texas is going to win this game, they need to be able to run the ball. If you can't run the ball on this Buckeye defense, consider it done, because I just don't see any other way to where Texas can establish a good rhythm offensively and consistently against this Buckeye defense if the run game is not there. Call it quits if the run game is not there. You have the horses to do it. Jaden Blue has ripped off big runs before. Quintravion Wisner has ripped off big runs before. They are capable of doing it. This is an offensive line that, yes, I know even with all the injuries they have, are capable of doing it. But Texas has been inconsistent. Sometimes Quinn Ewers hangs that deep ball up for just a little bit too long. It's what allowed Arizona State to get back in that game. Hung up the deep ball down the middle of the field a little bit too long. The corner for Arizona State was able to come pick it off, and Arizona State was able to tie the game, force overtime. Texas has been inconsistent in their special teams play. Auburn, usually a pretty solid kicker. He missed 2 chances to win the game for Texas and having them to avoid the whole 4th and 13 play in which what was not a good play call by the Arizona State defensive coordinator. But the Texas offense has all the horses to do it. And if they play their best level and if they play their best football, they are going to make this thing a game. Everything I just said is much easier said than done when you're talking about going up against a Buckeye defense that has just been lights out. The question that you had for them in the Oregon game was if they were going to be able to get Dylan Gabriel off rhythm, if the secondary was going to be able to defend the big plays, and you figured they had to do at least one of those things to put themselves in a really good position to win that game, and they did both. They had 8 sacks in that game. Dylan Gabriel was so confused by what he was seeing in that secondary because of what Jim Knowles was calling in that game. And the Buckeyes played amazing defensively. Sure, they took the foot off the gas a little bit, but you don't have to go pedal to the metal for 60 minutes when you look up and you see your offense has put the defense up 34-0 on the scoreboard. The defense can play fundamentals and can do its job. Ohio State is a defense that rivals Texas. A lot of people have said Texas the best defense in the country because Ohio State has shown moments of lapse. They showed it against Oregon. They showed it against Michigan where they couldn't defend the run. Ohio State held Oregon to negative 23-28. It was somewhere around that vicinity, but negative 20-plus rushing yards. Oregon went backwards in the run game. They had more passing yards than they did total yards because of what Ohio State did not allow Oregon to do on the ground. Now, with that, you could argue Ohio State hasn't really been tested in that vicinity in the playoffs yet because Dylan Sampson was hurt against Tennessee and Jordan James was ripping off some pretty sizable runs, and then he got hurt in that Rose Bowl game. So when you throw Quintravion Wiesner and Jaden Blue, barring that they are both healthy, which they both are, and again, you never predict an injury ever. So if those two guys are healthy and those two guys are running well, it's going to be something the Ohio State defense hasn't seen yet. But given what Quinn Ewers and this Texas passing attack is with how inconsistent they are, if this Buckeye secondary is going to make Quinn Ewers look at the field and just go, I don't understand what I'm looking at all, it's going to be a very, very long day for Texas. I really don't see a way for Texas to shut Ohio State out quickly because the Buckeyes are going to remain in this game. But the first key I have to talk about, and it is a must. I just can't emphasize this enough. If Texas cannot run the ball, it is going to be a long, long, long day for anyone wearing burnt orange in Jerry's world, because if they cannot run the ball, that's just going to give Ohio State even more opportunity to get pressure in on Quinn Ewers, and especially if this Ohio State offense is going to start out as fast as they have over the previous two games, Texas is going to find themselves in the big hole, and they're going to be in some real trouble. If you're Texas, you need to establish that ground game. You need to get, I'll say, at least 3.5 yards per carry. That will keep you at least in this game. It might not win you the game outright. You're going to have to do some other things to help you win, but at least 3.5 yards per carry, you're going to establish some sort of rhythm. Now, when you get to 4.5 yards per carry, that's where you can start to expose a couple of things with this Buckeye defense. Not that there's much to expose, but when you establish the run game, it's going to open up everything else. And you need to protect. This is an offensive front that just as a whole has got to step up. They've got to play better than what they have. And I know they're beat up, but so is Ohio State, and they're playing really well on the offensive line. Texas is not. They let a team that did not have a great pass rush run all over that backfield. Ohio State's got a much better pass rush than whatever Arizona State saw. Again, the defensive backs were excellent against Oregon, and it led to pressure. When you go back and watch tape in the Oregon game, yeah, Dylan Gabriel was scrambling outside of the pocket, and really that's the only way Oregon was able to get anything moving downfield. When Dylan Gabriel extended plays, that's when they finally found offensive rhythm, but a lot of those sacks that Ohio State got were coverage sacks. It's because Dylan Gabriel was looking at the secondary saying, I don't know where to go with the football, that allowed time for the pass rush to get home. If the same thing happens here, again, going to be a long day for the Burnt Orange. But Ewers and company have lots of inconsistency problems. There's an inconsistency to run the ball. Sometimes Quinn Ewers hangs that deep ball up just a little bit too long. I can see a path for Texas to win this game, and it comes with allowing Will Howard to not play grade A ball. That means getting pressure and getting Ohio State off rhythm. Texas needs a fast start, and they've got to run the football, and that offensive line has got to play better. I think if those things don't happen, Ohio State is going to win this game. I see a whole lot more path for the Buckeyes to win this game than I do for Texas. There are so many things that Ohio State does well that Texas also does well, but there are also some things that Ohio State does really well and has done well over the last two games in the college football playoff that Texas has not done. And especially in the last two games, we have not seen inconsistency from Ohio State. It's been fast start, boom, 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 fireworks out the gate, the defense playing lights out, and they shut the game out by halftime. And they don't even have to worry about it for the second 30 minutes of play. We've seen Texas battle. They allowed Clemson to get back in that game when they were up big. They allowed Arizona State to get back in that game when they were up big. And if the same thing happens here, it's going to spell doom. Some people are very hesitant to predict a blowout in college football playoff semifinals, and I am too, just because of the nature of the game and the nature of the spots that both of these teams are going to be in. There is fuel for both sides. Ohio State's got some award things, and hey, you're going to play this team first week next year. Texas has that same thing going for them, but also everyone is counting them out. I'm telling you right now, if Ohio State even plays close to the way they played Tennessee or Oregon, they will run through Texas. I don't think Ohio State is going to allow Texas to run the ball. I just don't see it. I think the inconsistency of Quinn Ewers, if it shows up, is going to be a major, major problem. And this Ohio State team right now is playing too good a football for me to say they won't win this game. Ohio State does a lot of things really, really well. This is the most talented roster in the entire country. And if they play even a sliver of the grade A ball that we've seen over the past 120 minutes, these next 60 are going to be rough for the fans in burnt orange. I got 35-20 for the Scarlet and Gray. I just think Ohio State is too talented. They've done a lot of things too well, and Texas is too inconsistent. The offensive line has not played well. The run game has been inconsistent. Quinn Ewers has been inconsistent. And the other two times Texas faced a physical team on both sides of the line of scrimmage, it was the Georgia Bulldogs, and they lost twice. Yes, they have a win over Texas A&M. Yes, they have a win over Michigan on the road, a Michigan team who beat this Buckeye team. Texas can do what Michigan and Nebraska did. If they can get pressure and they can win the battle on the line of scrimmage, they can make this game messy. I just don't see it happening. Ohio State is operating at too high a level. They're too talented, and the Buckeyes will roll to a national championship in the Cotton Bowl. Let me know what you guys think about this one in the comment section down below. Remember to play hard but tailgate harder, and I'll see all you guys here with another video very soon. Goodbye.